I love when she says, and I was worth saving. Now, I'm a big TED Talk fan, and as we're preparing for today, I was like, we need a video to be able to get us all up here so it's not awkward as we're all walking up here. And then I was by myself in the first minute. I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be scary. But thanks for joining me. So this is a little bit different than what we're used to here at the river. We're coming off of a wonderful Easter weekend, and I wanted to share with you what is happening in our hospitality ministry. To give you a little bit of background, when I first started here in December, one of the things that I heard the most from people when I would sit down with them is that they'd say, we're really excited for new people to walk through the doors. We're really excited for new people to start seeing what the river is doing here in this space and in this time. And I said, that's really a great thought. And when I started thinking about it, I was like, man, if new people are coming in, we better be ready for them. We better be ready for every single person that comes through those doors. And not only new people, but it's people who have been here for years. We better be ready to welcome them with open arms, with everything that we have, to make them feel this love that Jesus has for us. And that's what I heard. Every person I sat down with, they were like, we just are really excited to share what's happening with new people. We're excited to show people the love that this church has for people. I said, okay. So I said to Rachel on the first Monday of January, second Monday of January, I said, Rachel, we need to put together a team of people. And we need to start talking about what does it mean to show people love from the street to the seat. What does that look like when people are experiencing the love of God every single time that they walk through the doors? And Rachel, that next week, she said, I got people. Now, Rachel works in the office, and she does a wonderful job there, but I'm like, I think your heart is to love people. So what does that mean? And she turned around and said, I got perfect people. So she turned to Kate, and she turned to Tony, and they said, let's meet. Let's talk about hospitality. Let's talk about how we love people well here at this church. And I'll tell you, these three ladies show up every single Monday morning, and they talk about how do we as a church love people. So that's kind of the premise of the conversation, to be honest with you, when we're talking about what does this look like? We sat in our ministry team meeting a couple weeks ago, and I said, we have this really cool thing happening on Monday mornings. We're talking about hospitality. We're talking about loving people well. And a couple people in that meeting go oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was happening. And I said, whoa. We need to tell the church what's happening on a more regular basis. So it's my intention that these coffee conversations, it's going to be a series of conversations. This is not just going to be about hospitality, but eventually you're going to hear about children's ministry, and you're going to hear about music ministry, and you're going to hear about all these different things that are happening in our church. And so when you see this setup, that's my hope and my goal, is that you're going to hear something that's happening in the church that you might not know about, you might not be cued into, and that they will be able to tell the story. So I'm not going to talk much. These ladies are going to really lead the conversation, but I just wanted to let you know that every time you kind of see this set up, that's kind of what we're going for. We want to tell the church what's happening in specific ministries. We want to highlight those ministries, and we came up with a catchy title, Coffee Conversations. So we all have coffee, and that's what makes this a coffee conversation. So that's how we've gotten here. And I'm really excited to share with you what has been happening every Monday, from the last, I don't know, we've met probably 8-9 weeks now. It's been incredible. It's been a great opportunity to just meet. Rachel brings food. It's great. Usually Kate has food. She brings Arthur. It's oh, this is awesome. Everyone gets to hold the baby. This is great. It's been a really great opportunity to just kind of talk about stuff. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to kind of just sit here and act as talk show host the best I can. But I really want to start with where has the river been in terms of loving people well? How did we get to a point where we're we want to be a church that just, when people walk through the doors, and if this is your first time here or your second time here, I want you to hear this conversation, because ultimately this is the kind of church that we want to be week in, week out, day in, day out. So I want you to hear this conversation. If you've been here for 15 years, I want you to hear this conversation, because I love the things that are coming out of these meetings, and I think it's really important for everyone to hear the conversations that are taking place on Monday. So tell us, how was the river born with that heart? Tony, can you speak to that?
I think it's funny that you said, if you've been here for 15 years, did you know that we've been here for 15 years? I had to call and ask a couple people how long we had been here when I was trying to figure that out. 15 years.
15.
Yeah. So 15 years ago, a group of people had the idea that we were going to start a new church. And you can imagine that meant a whole lot of meetings. So we began having meeting after meeting after meeting. And as you can imagine, when you start something from the ground up, when you start from scratch, it is a pretty daunting process. And but it also can be very, very liberating. And so when we had this idea, we were kind of free from the constraints of what it was to be affiliated with another church, what the rules and regulations were, and so we just had some freedom to build upon our ideals and our core values, and that would be the foundation of who we wanted to be. So one of the most important things, one of the topics of discussion was how we were going to pinpoint how we were going to serve and how we were going to welcome all people into this building. And this small group of people that started this church had come from all different kind of church experiences and all different kind of churches, and some were good and some were not so good. So we invested a whole lot of time into training and learning and implementing ideas that would help us to welcome people into this church as if they were a guest in our own homes. And so we hoped that the river would be a place for a diverse group of people, people from all walks of life. And so we had hoped for people who were not going to church anymore, either because they had been hurt by people or by church rules and regulations. We hoped for people that had never been to church at all, maybe a little intimidated by a stained glass or a steeple, and we hoped that they would feel welcome walking through the doors of a theater. We hoped for people who were abused and discarded and unloved, because we wanted to be used by Jesus to show them that no matter who they were, no matter what they had done, no matter what they looked like, or even who they believed in, that they had worth, and that the River Church was going to be a place where they could be free to be them. And we also hoped for people who had a strong relationship with Jesus Christ, were strong in their faith, who had experienced an amazing love that Jesus had to offer them, and that their lives had been transformed and redeemed, and that they had come in here excited about partnering with us and our heart about how we were going to love all people. And so you can see our original intent in the very beginning, all those years ago, was that we were going to be set apart from other churches by the way that we loved people. That was our intent. And not that other churches don't love, not that other churches are disingenuous, not at all. But you see marketing taglines worldwide used by churches that say, "Come as you are, free to be who you are, everyone is welcome." Well, the River Church wanted to embody those marketing taglines. We wanted to live that as our mission. And that is our intent from the very beginning all those years ago, and still is our intent even today.
Yeah, I've been sitting with a lot of different people. I've heard that over and over again. Like, I didn't have to be anything coming to the river. I didn't have to know about Jesus. I didn't have to know about faith. I didn't have to know like traditional churches. I didn't have to know that stuff. But I felt welcome here because it was because of that intent, because of that fact.
One of my favorite stories is of Badger, who came in here proclaiming Buddhism, and he just felt so loved here by us that he attended every week. Badger was a scholar, and he was baptized into the faith. And he came in here and ate a hot dog and stayed.
I love hearing stories. So Kate's got a wonderful story about like the first time you came in and how really just the experience of loving people well changed how you experience everything.
Yeah. I had been attending at a church previously to coming to the river for about a year. Great church. And it was a friend of mine, the lovely Tara, who she and her husband and a couple other individuals that I know were performing a skit that morning. And so they enticed me to come here on Sunday because they were going to be doing that. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come. Did not know what I was in store for. So I remember walking up, the front sidewalk, and there's a collection of people standing out front. And I thought, oh, good. They're all talking. Like I can slip by, get in, and, just find myself a seat. And, when you have people like Michael Dussman and Jimmy Cost and Ed Davis, Bill Lang, standing at the front gates, there is no just getting in and not being welcomed. So that was my first and foremost impression were this collection of people who just truly wanted to, one, welcome me, but also know me. And something that we talk about, is how we as people just have this innate desire to be known, to be valued. And so right off the bat, you're stroking my ego. You're making me feel real good. Like, yep, they think I'm important. And so brought me in, got a cup of coffee, found my seat, and when I had been at my previous church, I reached out several times to ministry leaders, to office staff, saying, I want to be baptized. How do I do this? And somehow no one ever took me through that process. It was always me having to reach out, but no one really ever taking that next step. And so I was like, okay, well, so be it. We'll figure it out. We'll get it on the calendar eventually. And I sat down in the seat and I pulled up my program. Like, what's this thing called?
Program.
My program, and splashed across the front is a tidal wave that reads The River Baptism Sunday. And almost immediately, I'm just crying in my seat because I'm like, oh, I know why I'm here. And so I remember Don Mindshock standing on this stage and just tearfully making the invitation to everyone, in the seats that you guys are sitting in today to say, come, be part of this, or come and just be part and watch. And so it was just really, it spoke to me to say, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so from there, I watched my collection of friends perform this 10-minute skit that added to the tears and snot that I was producing at that time. And which led into just a very heartfelt service. Worship was on point. It was just amazing. And I got up and I walked up those 4 stairs and was met by this beautiful woman who I think probably could visually tell that I'd been touched because, again, covered in snot, crying. And she was like, how was it? And I just told her, I know I'm here, Tony. I want to be baptized. And so she took my hand and she walked me down to the front doors where Pastor stood that morning and introduced me, took my information, and they literally embraced with me and just were so genuinely excited. Excited that I was at that point, that I was going to make that next step. Excited that they were going to be part of that. And they didn't really even know me. First time I've ever walked through these doors, and that was how I was treated and embraced and loved. And from there, it was just a whirlwind love story that I have with this church. 10 days later, I was baptized with a collection of, I think, 20 plus other people down on the shores of Lake Geneva, which was just a beautiful thing to be a part of. I think within a week, I said to myself, how do I get to know this church? How do I get to just really dig in? And so for me, it was, I need to be a greeter. The only way for me to get to know every single person in this church is to meet and greet every single person who walks through those front doors. And so for me, that was my starting point. 2 weeks from there, I was invited into my first DLT group with Josh and Sarah Dusterbeck. And then from there, I think it was 9 months after that I quit my job and became the office administrator here at the River. And I just never looked back. But when I think about not only that first day, but first week, first month, first year, the amount of people who took the time to welcome me, but also invite me into this family in so many different ways, that really was how I came to know and love this church, but to really know and love my God. And I didn't know that that's what church could feel like. I mean, growing up, I've always walked into a church door. I was handed a bulletin, and you walk into church, you sit down, and you pretty much, if you're lucky to have a bulletin that tells you every single aspect of service, you kind of check mark like, all right, we're halfway through. And if not, you're kind of just watching the clock. And I don't know if there's ever been a moment when I've been here at the River that I've watched the clock or wished service to be over, because it's one of the best times of my week. And that's one, due to I get to spend time with God, but moreover because I get to be immersed in this amazing group of family and friends and church. So that was my beginning.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I think I was like baptism by fire as I sat in the first couple meetings with these ladies on Mondays, and was just like, what is happening here with hospitality? What is, if you want new people to walk through the door, if you want to love them, what do we do next? So in the last 2 months, we've had conversations about like, what does that look like? No, not like surface level, but like, what does it actually look like to love people well? And in these conversations, it's been really great. We've like talked about, the paint colors in the like foyer area, like that happened like in a meeting. It was just like, oh, we think we can make this happen. Boop, 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 send a couple texts, and all of a sudden by the next week it's done. It was just like, that wasn't really a part of this, but it happened. It's been really a cool experience. So what else have we learned in these meetings about hospitality?
I think for me personally, just learning that, reaffirming that ministry is fun, and that doing life with each other is really fun. And I happen to, love these ladies a lot on a personal level, but I love their hearts for Jesus, their hearts for other people, and what they bring each week. And we're really just seriously looking at the River like it is a house, and it is a house. It's God's house. I think for me, when I welcome people into my home, I want nothing more than for them to feel comfortable, for them to feel wanted, for them to feel like they're exactly where they're supposed to be in that moment. And that is the passion of this team, to welcome people into the River in that way. We know that life is hard sometimes. We know that life is joyful, and that we all come to church with something on our mind. And whether you've been here from the beginning or this is your first week here, we're no different. And we all want to be, like Kate said, we all want to be wanted. We all want to be known. And that is our heart's cry, here at the River, that people would be known. And as a team, we're looking at specific areas of the church, and we're looking at, greeters. We're looking at the River Kids check-in. We're looking at the coffee area, announcements, and realize that those are all checkpoints that people experience when they come in, and we want those to be the most comfortable, the most welcoming places for our guests and our friends, as they come. And so that is where we're specifically looking, but we also acknowledge what Tony spoke to, that the DNA of the River is that it is a place that wants to love people well, and that has not changed in the 15 years since the church began. And so we want to love people well, and we want that to be something that spills into every ministry, every person who walks through the doors, that they leave and they just know, wow, God loves me, and they don't need to see us. That's not what our hope is. We hope that they just feel the love of God, and that is what carries them through the week.
I have been reading a lot on hospitality lately because in my previous position as youth pastor, I didn't really have to worry about like welcoming people. It was just like I could punch a kid in the arm and he'd be welcomed, you know. I wish I was kidding. So I've been reading a lot on this stuff, and one of these books I just was reading is called "People Are the Mission." One of the things that he says is that the gospel should be the only offensive thing in a church experience. The gospel should be the only offensive thing. If we're preaching the gospel from up here on Sunday morning, that should be the only offensive thing for people as they walk through the doors. And I'm not talking just like first time, I'm talking everybody. That like everyone experiences the love of Christ every single time. And one of the things that I'm really interested in hearing from you guys is, you know, we're not just trying to like make this stuff up. I read a lot of books, but at the same time, we've really rooted this in some scriptural reference. And they've spent a lot of time in Scripture in this process too. So, if you guys, can you share some of the Scripture that has been put on your heart regarding loving people well, hospitality, that whole experience?
Well, when I was asked, to come up with something that I thought really spoke to it in Scripture, I didn't find a couple of verses. I just found the whole of Acts chapter 4. And this is where John and Peter are in the temple, and they are talking to people about Jesus. They have everybody's ear. They are talking to anybody who will listen about the resurrection power of Jesus Christ. And they are noticed by the temple guards and by the high priests. And John and Peter were just regular guys. They didn't have any special training. There wasn't anything special about them, but they loved Jesus, and they wanted everybody else to love Jesus too. And so they were bold in their witness in the temple. Well, they ended up being arrested, and they were jailed for the night. And but the people who listened, and the people who heard their message, and the people who believed were saved. 5,000 people were saved from just them speaking about Jesus Christ. So I was thinking, why does this scripture speak to me about hospitality or caring about people? Because John and Peter were asked, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you talking to people? And their response was that, if I have seen and I have heard, why wouldn't I tell? If we have seen and we have heard, why wouldn't we tell? I was saved. Somebody cared enough about me to tell me the truth. Somebody cared enough about me to want me to know an alternative way of living than living in the muck and mire that I had made of my own life. And they offered me Jesus. And that's what we have. That's what our mission is. I would love this church to help people bring people into a fuller and richer relationship with Jesus Christ simply by loving them and caring about them. That's what John and Peter did. They just spoke his name.
I found myself in Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, and it reads, "Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it." And I love this thought, and for me it's just such a good checkpoint, because I feel sometimes we can get stuck in what we're comfortable with. And so thinking about who I'm going to talk to, or who I'm going to intentionally, reach out to or even just smile at. Sometimes I can get stuck just wanting to, go to, comfort zones. And so this thought makes me think, but what if that man standing in the corner was Jesus? Would I shy away from that opportunity to go and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here? And so putting that thought on it just pushes me, motivates me, and encourages me to, again, get outside of myself, get outside of my comfort zones, and just really be welcoming and loving to everyone, and not just to, like my comfort zones.
My verse actually comes from Exodus 17:12, and it's sort of, for me, when I was reading, was an unlikely place to think of hospitality, but it just hit me really hard. And the verse is, when Moses' hand grew tired, and they took a stone and put it under him and sat on it, Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. What does that have to say about hospitality? The backstory of that verse is that the Israelites were at war with the Amalekites, and Moses and Joshua were, Joshua went out to battle, and Moses is like, if you're going out to battle, I'm going to go up and pray. And so he and Aaron and Hur went on top of a hill, and they were praying, and Moses had the rod that had parted the Red Sea, and that was with him. And every time he raised the rod up and held his arms up, the Israelites were prevailing in the war against the Amalekites. When his arms got weary and tired, and he would lower the rod, the Amalekites would start to take over the Israelites. And so you can imagine holding something up for any amount of time, your arms start to shake, but there is a battle at stake. There are people's lives at stake. And so Moses is determined to hold that rod up, but he becomes weary. So Aaron and Hur come alongside, and they grab him a stone to sit down and find some rest. And then they go on either side of him, and they hold up his arms. And the three of them together hold the rod up until sunset. And I'm just like, that is what we are to be for one another. We all carry different burdens. We all, like I said before, walk in with different things on our minds, and that is hospitality. If we are loving people as Jesus loved people, sometimes we're holding them up, and sometimes they're holding us up. And that is exactly what I want people to know when they come in here, that they are held up exactly as they are.
I just want you all to know, this is how I feel, like on Mondays. Like, it's said that like good leaders are supposed to put smarter people around themselves. Like, that's how I feel right now, Just like, man, you guys are brilliant. Like, Monday mornings are fun. I just sit there and I'm just like, I just get to be a fly on the wall, and it's a wonderful conversation. So you've kind of heard us cast a vision on, like hospitality and what we'd like to do. And I want to be honest, I think it's a really lofty goal to be all of this all of the time. But at the same time, I'm a big proponent of saying, let's put it in front of us, and let's say that's the standard of who we want to be as followers of Jesus Christ in this world, not only here in our church, but like in our community as well. So with that in mind, would you guys be willing to speak on like if this is a continual process, if we're always trying to become this hospitable follower of Jesus, for our church, maybe individually and as a corporate entity, like what do we want to become as a church?
A place of joy. I think a lot of times happiness and joy get intertwined as though they're the same word, and they really aren't the same word. Happiness is a feeling, and joy is a choice. I mean, the Bible talks about consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, and God is very clear that we are going to face trials. I mean, it's a guarantee, but we can find joy in those things, and we can be a reflection of Christ in our trials, and we don't know what someone may learn from us being open and being joyful in a tough circumstance. And so that is my heart's desire, that we would be a place of joy.
Yeah, one of the things that Rachel first said when we started meeting, we were like, what do we want to do? And she just said, I want people to experience joy when they walk through the door. She's like, I don't know what that looks like. I just want people to experience joy. I was like, that is profound. So thank you. I appreciate that.
I know for me, one of the things that I valued coming in was truly the genuine hearts of others, the authenticity that I felt from everyone that came in. And so I think when I think about where we're going and the hope to have, like new faces and to share, joy and love with the masses as, they hopefully flood our gates, is to maintain that authenticity. I feel that can be easily lost when you just grow in size. It's harder to have those one-on-one connections. It takes a lot more intentionality to be able to still capture what that feeling is, I think, for people when they come in. And so when I think about, yes, I do really, really want joy. And I also want, what Tony's going to speak on. But my heart is that we are able to just really maintain our genuine hearts. Because that was really what drew me in. That was what captured and kept me here, was everybody's, just genuine nature, their true desire to love others well. And so that's my hope.
Well, and God's first commandment and his greatest commandment was to love. And he didn't categorize that on who it was that we are to love. Everyone was his commandment, and everyone is our mission. Jesus didn't give any instruction on how to make that easier, and he certainly didn't give us a plan on how to make it more successful. So we've learned by our experience that loving others is hard, and sometimes it's really, really hard. But he does say that if you do this, if you obey my commandment, it's going to be worth it. It may not be easy, but it's going to be worth it. Well, in one of our meetings, I came across an article that really had great impact on us and really spurred a lot of discussion. And it was written by the son of a pastor. And this pastor inspired a specific action by his church members to become a there you are person and not a here I am person. So that translates to that church and to our church that we would like to be a there you are church rather than a here I am church. Now, to qualify that, a there you are person, when they walk into a room, they convey by their actions, there you are. I'm so happy to see you. You are important to me. I want to know you better. Well, our example in that is Jesus. Jesus was always seeking people out first. He didn't wait for people to come to him. Jesus pursued people. Jesus noticed them. Jesus desired to have relationship with everybody. Jesus remembered people by name. And he when he walked into a room, he found those people who were alone, and he was drawn to the people who were hurting. So in this article, it tells us that it's expected that the majority of people who come into church for the first time, and probably the second time and the third time, and many more after that, that they are naturally going to come in with a here I am mindset. They're not comfortable enough to go up to someone else. They're not going to integrate themselves in with a group of people who are talking. Naturally, they're going to want people to come to them. But the danger in this is when the guest and the congregation both have this mindset. And that is when it can become dangerous, and really that's where it's damaging. So I want to be noticed, and you want to be noticed. We talked about it's an innate desire within each one of us to be noticed, to be wanted, to be worthy, to varying degrees with each one of us, but we all want that. I remember one Sunday, there was a lady who came into church. I had seen her a couple of times, had some superficial conversations with her, but this weekend I was a greeter. So when she came in, I asked, how are you this morning? And her reply was good. And I handed her a program, and I welcomed her, and she came into the sanctuary. I knew she was not good. So I pursued her. And I said to her, I know that you told me that you were good, but I know that you're not. Is there anything that I can do for you? Is there anything, can I pray with you? That opened up such a wonderful opportunity for me to get to know her, for her to share herself with me. And if I had not noticed her, if I had not been spurred on by the Spirit, I would have missed an opportunity to show her that she was noticed. My heart hurts when people leave here feeling that they were invisible and that they were left out. And we all should have hurting hearts if someone has escaped this place without feeling loved. But you know what? We can't do better unless we know better. And so in thinking about this, we were hoping that we would all look upon this as not as the duty of the hospitality team, but that we would each be searching our hearts to say, what part do I play here? How have I been falling short? This is not easy, and it is not comfortable. But like Jesus said, it's worth it. And we're not going to realize perfection in this area ever, but we're going to be really morphing continuously to be more excellent in our care and our concern for other people.
Yeah, I really love that idea, and this is a challenge to all of you. If you are a follower of Jesus, I've heard in different podcasts, the guy says, if you're a follower of Jesus, everything you do on a Sunday morning, whether it be on stage or as shaking people's hands, you should never want to be comfortable, because you never know who's going to walk through the door. And if you think about what Rachel was saying before, if people are coming into your house, how much do you do for those other people that are walking through the doors? Sometimes it's not comfortable to be always moving around as people are eating, or they're always moving around getting people drinks as they're enjoying conversation. But that's not our job here at the church. Our job isn't to be comfortable, it's to serve the people the best way we can. And sometimes that means, as followers of Jesus, we have to be uncomfortable to make those who we welcome comfortable. So I love the wisdom that I just glean off of these ladies every week, and I'm so happy that you guys have gotten an opportunity to hear their hearts and to really understand, we want to be a church that loves people well in everything that we do. And that doesn't mean just shaking people's hands or sitting them down, or it goes beyond that. It means on Mondays when you're at work and how you treat people. We want hospitality to just be everything that you are, that it becomes second nature to you. Because for Jesus it was making sure that I think when Tony's talking, I think of Zacchaeus as he's pointing Zacchaeus out in the trees, hey, you, let's go to your house because I love you. And I'm going to show you love. Even though you don't deserve it or you don't think you deserve it, I'm going to love you anyways. And I love that. The heart of this team, the heart of this church is to love people well. And I think going forward, you're going to see that more and more. As we jump into this spiritual gift series in 2 weeks, Michael Dustman is going to talk about hospitality, the spiritual gift of hospitality, taking care of people. And shortly thereafter, we're going to set opportunities. If you're gifted in hospitality, if you feel a call to be a greeter or to be a part of coffee or to be a part of the registration for the kids, or if you want to do announcements, if you feel that like pull, we're going to set an opportunity for you to hear more of this team's heart, to be able to get an understanding of like, what is it that we are looking to do? What are the job roles that we have? And how can we share that more with who you feel like God has made you to be? And then in a couple of weeks after that, we're going to set a meeting where if you say like, yeah, I want to be a part of this ministry going forward, we're going to train you up and we're going to say, this is how we at the River want to do this going forward. And if that is you, if you're interested in that at all, I'm really excited for you to be a part of that with us, because I don't want to just give this lip service. I don't want to just like say it out of this end of my mouth and not do it on this side. Like, I want you to know at the heart of who we are as the River, we want to love people well. And I hope through this team, through our opportunity with the spiritual gift inventory that we're going to launch next week, that you have an opportunity to say, like, has God gifted me in this way? And if he has, what am I going to do next? So I'd invite you into this conversation. It's just not this team. This team is not just like the three of these ladies and they're just going to be like, we're going to do everything. No, I want the church to be a part of what's happening here, that it just is who we are, not just on Sundays, but on Mondays too. You guys have anything else that you'd like to add? I know this part's not on the sheet, so I want to just give them an opportunity. Perfect. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Hey, can you guys welcome me or come with me to thank these ladies? Coffee conversations. It's cold coffee though at the end. Hey, will you guys pray with me? Good and gracious God, we give you thanks for today. We give you thanks for just conversation around coffee. Today it happened on stage, but tomorrow it might happen somewhere else. And we just ask that you breathe a spirit of hospitality into us, that you show us what it means to take care of people, to love people well. And if you're working in someone's life right now, Lord, and you're calling someone to say, like, I want to be a part of this ministry. I want to be a part of welcoming people. I want to stand at the door and say, like, we're so glad you're here. You want to be a part of making coffee for people because you love seeing people with coffee cups in their hand. Lord, I just ask that you move in whoever's life that is today. And as we enter a season of talking about spiritual gifts, as we enter a season of examining and taking inventory of who we are as who you've made us, Lord, that if someone is moving toward hospitality, that you just push them out as hard as you can to make it so clear to them. God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for this team of people that you've called into talking about how we love people well here at the River. Lord, I'm asking that in all things that we do, that we love people well here at the church, God. We love you. We thank you. We give you thanks this day. We ask all of this in your Son's name. Amen.